Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the COVID Task Force meeting here for February 3rd. My name is Phil Talon. I'm the Chief of Staff for the City of Hammond. Mayor Tom had another event he had to attend at the same time, so I'll be filling in for him today. Pretty big shoes to fill. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on and participating. I think these task force meetings have been very helpful in that we're all sharing information with each other and doing the best we can to keep everybody safe, at least as much as we possibly can. Unfortunately, I saw in Indiana, we did hit the grim milestone of we reached 10,000 deaths related to the coronavirus pandemic, unfortunately. But on the positive side of that, I did see that Indiana has expanded their vaccination policy now for folks that are between the ages of 65 and 69. So the vaccines are out there, they're happening, and obviously that'll protect all of us as we continue to get folks vaccinated. I should have mentioned in the very beginning to thank Lori, our interpreter, who's helping out. I'll try and do my best to go slow so that she can very easily interpret everything we're saying. But with that, why don't we do what we typically do and turn it over to Dr. Frank and ask him for an update on what's going on. What's the latest these days? Dr. Frank, good morning. How are you? You're muted, Dr. Frank.
Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies. Good morning. So I'm going to try to keep this a little bit briefer. I think a lot of the information is most people already are familiar with. So I'll look at the kind of the hot topics that are out there. You've touched on vaccination, which I think is ultimately the key for us to get through this and past this. So that is it's never going to be as fast as we want. I think we just have to accept that. But it is making progress. So far, according to the CDC, 25 million Americans have gotten their first dose of the vaccine. So, maybe a little slower than we'd hope, but it's a positive sign. I think that it is moving forward. Anytime you do something on this large of a scale, there's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some issues here and there, but it's moving forward. So I'm happy to see that. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, they applied for emergency use authorization. They do not have quite the same protection rate as the Moderna and the Pfizer, but it's still very good. And that is a one-shot dose. So having that out there, I think, will allow us to get more people vaccinated and more faster. All of the vaccines up to this point do appear to cover these new variant strains that are popping up in different places. They've testing for these different strains, whereas they had not at the beginning. We didn't have the ability to do that. So we're finding them and they're out there. We'll find more. The key is, will the vaccine be adequately covering that? The other good thing is that I know Moderna and Pfizer are looking at the possibility of doing boosters. If there's enough variances out there that may not be covered, they can easily retool and develop boosters that will cover it. So I think our trajectory is going in a very positive direction with the vaccine, which is, in my opinion, the key to getting everything, quote unquote, back to normal and unlocked.
Dr. Frank, let me ask you really quick. Is this going to basically turn into something similar like the flu vaccine, where every year folks are going to have to go out and get a new vaccine and hopefully it covers majority of the variations of whatever the strain is?
No, I don't think so. This being an RNA virus, the mutation rate is much lower than, say, the flu vaccine. The reason we have to do that every year is it mutates a significant amount, so significantly that the vaccine from the previous year does not cover the new strain. COVID is not that same type of virus, and even though there are mutations, which is normal, it's at a much slower and less significant rate. Now, it's conceivable that some new strains could pop up that need, as we said, a booster, but I honestly don't see where this would be an annual event or an annual thing. I just don't think it's going to change enough to get us to that point.
That's good news.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is kind of a history in the making, real-time science. So there's unanswered questions. We don't know all the answers, and we can all acknowledge that we're learning more, but we still don't have all the answers. But that's the way it appears to be at this point. The other good thing is that the infection rates are lowering nationwide. They're coming down in Indiana as well. We've got 7.4% of the population in Indiana vaccinated, which is pretty darn good considering this has only been going on for a couple months now. The positive test rate statewide is down to 9.3. So all of those numbers are coming down. There was a surge in November, and all of the positive test rates, the hospitalization rates, have all been declining in Indiana and nationwide. So I think some of the mitigation factors that we're doing, such as wearing masks, the social distancing, and the awareness that people have are helping significantly. And in combination with us continuing to do those things that make sense, that are smart, and getting the vaccine out there, I think that this isn't going in a positive trajectory. And hopefully by second half of this year, we're going to be in a much different position than we are at this point. And I really believe that will be the case. It's going to probably be a little slower than we all hoped, but I think this time next year, we won't be having these meetings. And this will be something that we look back on more so than having to deal with.
Sure. I know it wasn't that long ago, maybe a month ago or so, where it was saying Indiana was behind in vaccinations per the population or per capita. But most recently, I did see an article that said Indiana actually was one of the top states as far as getting the vaccinations out there. So that's a positive. You touched on something. Each state is handling the distribution of the vaccine on their own. It's not federally overseen. And some states are doing a better job than others. And Indiana is doing a very good job. And I will say locally, everybody I've talked to that has gotten a vaccine, myself included, the process was amazing. It's very efficient. The technology that they're using to schedule the appointments is excellent. I got my second dose a few weeks ago, and I now have a little digital card that says I've gotten both doses of the vaccine that I can carry. And that's happening nationwide. So it's impressive what private public partnership has been able to accomplish in the last year. And think of it, a year ago, this hadn't been a thing yet, Dr. Frank, one more question before I turn it over to Karen. I want to talk to her a little bit about the vaccination and also about how the strain has changed a little bit, because I know she shared an article with me this morning that I read. But Dr. Frank, what would you say to the folks out there that are scared to take the vaccine? They've heard stuff, they've read stuff, and they just aren't 100% comfortable. I mean, what would you tell them to, potentially push them to actually get the vaccination, or would you?
I would not. I wouldn't push vigorously. Everybody's, got their own opinions and their own beliefs. But I think that we need to make sure that the correct information is out there. Again, it's going to be an individual decision. I went ahead and got it. I looked at it. I think the technology that they're using, especially with the RNA, the mRNA vaccines, which is Pfizer and Moderna, is pretty amazing. It doesn't stay in your system. It does not alter your genetics. I know people are a little concerned that it's going to alter their genetic DNA. It doesn't get into our DNA. It doesn't change anything. It basically uses the same system that the virus uses to infect us, to stimulate antibody production. And once it does that, it's gone. I will say that there are varying degrees of side effects that I've seen from people who have gotten the vaccine. My second dose, I felt like I was coming down with something for about 24 hours. But it wasn't that bad. It certainly wasn't anything that would keep me from working or going. So, the people who have gotten more significant, I think one of the things we're realizing is that if you had COVID recently, you probably need to wait about 90 days. We don't really have a consistent number. I've heard some people say a month, some places say 90 days, some places say longer. before you get the vaccine, because your side effects will be more strong if, at least that's the way it's looking, if you've had COVID recently. You're stimulating an immune response, and you've got a lot of antibodies already in your system from having recovered from the infection. And I think that's the reason behind that. I would definitely push people to get the vaccine. I believe it's safe. I'm getting it. I'm going to have my family get it. I recommend it personally. So.
Thank you, Dr. Frank. Appreciate that. Why don't we go to Karen Callahan from Franciscan. Karen, thanks for joining us again. And I appreciate you sending that link this morning to take a look at. It tries to break it down almost in like a very basic way of how the variations of the virus are happening and how your body is still working to obviously protect us. So if you want to touch on that and then whatever other information you have for us, we'd appreciate it.
Correct. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to go through the quick numbers from Franciscan, if that's okay with you. 14 positive as of Monday, 5 rule out, and 2 positive in ICU on BiPAP. No issues with any space or ventilators or anything like that. Year to date, 1,026 were discharged home, 100 deceased. As of Monday, we have distributed, I'm trying to go slow for the interpreter, 3,953 first doses of the vaccine and 1,739 second doses of the vaccine. Agreeing with Dr. Masana in regards to the process. I've had to actually take my mom to a different facility, community, and it was as seamless. Of course, I'm partial to Franciscan, but it was very seamless at both places. Very easy to do. I think the mayor has put out the website. And if you're confused about the website, just go to indiana.gov and in the search type coronavirus, and that's going to give you, or I'm sorry, corona vaccine, and that will give you the vaccine. You know that Indiana has dropped down to 65. I'm sure you touched on that as well, but if you are 65, and I agree with Dr. Masana, I encourage people to get the vaccine. I am double vaccinated. I feel fine. Symptoms have ranged, but we have not had any issues. Fatigue off the second one, and then soreness in the arm is another big one, but both of them extremely easy to get through compared to having coronavirus. So people need to keep that in mind, that it's more important to get the vaccine. And I agree with Dr. Masana, I wouldn't push it on anybody, but I fully believe in it. The other thing I just wanted to mention real quick before I talk about the variants is I was talking to a couple ER doctors, and we have seen 0 flu cases, 0. And we test everyone because people that come in with symptoms of COVID also are similar to the flu. So what does it tell us, right? And I think the mayor talked about this last, he hasn't had a sore throat and those kind of things. So you know, masking correctly over your nose, social distance, hand washing, those things really work. And I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer. Dr. Masana is very positive, and you're right. But people have to learn how to live with this kind of new normal for the future, because it's not going to go away immediately as soon as everyone is vaccinated. And I think we should take some of these things that we've learned as positive. I mean, I've never washed my hands so much in my whole life, even as a nurse. So I think kids learning how to wash their hands, kids with masking, social distance is really going to let's take that positive out of this tragedy that we've been in this pandemic. So that I just wanted to touch on. In regards to the variants, we've all seen the newscasts with the big corona, the virus with those spikes sticking out. And, you know, when we talk about those spikes, what the body tries to do is basically put like a Lego block on top of those spikes, right? To stop the cells from getting injured or infected with a virus. So when you think of the vaccine, that's what it's going to do. It's going to help our body build the immunities to put those Lego blocks all over those spikes. Now, the coronavirus is a smart virus, right? So every time it infects somebody, it also has the opportunity to mutate. Some of the mutations actually hurt the virus. Some of the mutations help the virus. So there's two areas, South Africa and Denmark, that they're only concerned about these variants, that the vaccine will not work. What I have read is there's one case in Canada of the South African, and I'm telling people to inform them, not to make them nervous, but the majority of all the other variants, think about this has been going on for a year now, so the possibilities of different variants, the vaccine will work. So I want people to understand that it's important to think about that and educate yourself. We have the internet at our fingertips, but use credible sources, use credible sources on Google. Don't just go to the first willy-nilly. And I'm sorry, but I would be leery. Sometimes the news is, I don't know if I would believe everything that the news says. So
it depends what channel you're watching, right?
Yeah. So does that help with, and then of course my last soapbox is make sure that you're responsible in building up your immunity, get that rest and exercise and eat right and, try to decrease stress in your life. And those things they sound silly, but they're really, really important, especially when your body needs to fight a virus, a cold or anything. But this is, more than anything we've ever had. So anyway, I hope that helps.
Great point, Karen. I mean, wellness initiatives have proven, that it'll stop people from getting sick in all kinds of different ways, not just with the COVID. So obviously that makes 100% sense. And I agree with what you said. I'm definitely not the personal mask police out there, but this virus has been around for 11 months now, and it still seems like some folks are wearing masks where they're sliding down and moving them over. It's like at this point, you probably could have found a mask that, will fit you well and stay above your nose and that sort of thing. So I'm glad you brought that up as well. I will try and get the link that you sent me to our IT guys and get it on the Go Hammond website. And so everybody else, because I thought it did a very good job of breaking it down in very basic terms where, people could understand without having any type of medical background.
I give props to my son. He sent it to me, and I really like the article, how it broke things down. The other thing the CDC says about masks, and I know people are going to kill me, but it's like an obstacle course, right? So the CDC is saying now you could even double mask, and people are probably thinking, well, how many masks you want me to wear? But if you think of an obstacle course, the holes going in the mask, if you put another mask, it might block those holes. So it's just something to think about. And I foresee people in crowds and stuff like that wearing masks for a long time, even after this goes away. It's kind of a security net, I think, for older people and people maybe that are health compromised. I think it's a smart idea. So.
Well, and just the fact you brought up that 0 flu cases are coming in right now.
Crazy.
The masks are obviously playing a big role with that. So even if you're not worried about if COVID eventually, hopefully, moves along, we still need to protect ourselves and keep ourselves healthy. So thank you, Karen. Appreciate that very much.
No problem.
Kevin Smith, I see you're on there. I don't know if we can get you unmuted, but I know that Governor Holcomb last week kind of laxed some of the rules throughout the state, including in Lake County. So I don't know if, Kevin, you want to touch on that. There you are.
Good morning, Phil.
Good morning.
And good morning, everyone. Sure. Couple of the things from, I guess, a legal perspective are that, number one, I believe it was on Friday or maybe late Thursday last week, the county health officer lifted her order, which is 20-02. That was the order that made more restrictive regulations in the county, especially as it related to bars and restaurants. You may remember that bars and restaurants were closing at midnight instead of their usual time for probably a good month and a half. There was also restrictions on events and the need for an event plan. those are all lifted now. So if you were out late last weekend and you're out past midnight and you saw bars open, that was why. Additionally, that means that it reverts back to the state order, and that would mean 20-50, which is the governor's last order regarding restrictions. The Lake County is in the orange now, which is great news. We were in red for a while, so moving to orange is a positive, as I'm sure Karen and Dr. Frank would also agree with. That means I think we're in 2.5 right now. So if we fall below 2, we get to go to yellow. What that means from a kind of everyday perspective means that events can go to 50 now instead of 25. Social distancing is still mandated. Masks are still strongly recommended, and I think mandated in most public places, including all government buildings, which would include City Hall and the Sportsplex and the Gene Shepherd Center. But I'm sure Jim is going to touch on that a little bit when you hand it over to him. I know that another thing that you'll notice is there aren't, and this happened before, there aren't percentages of capacity in restaurants any longer, but you do have to watch and keep social distancing. You're supposed to be seated, and you're supposed to wear your mask when you come up from your seat and are exiting or going to the bathroom at the restaurant or anything like that. I think it's also encouraged to keep your mask on when you are in a public restroom, just because a lot of times you can't maintain social distance in those areas. The other thing I know that we wanted to touch on, and I just wanted to touch on and kind of echo what Karen and Dr. Frank mentioned, is I think and this is just more of a personal anecdotal story, but the state website is really good regarding registering people for their vaccines. It's OurShot, OURSHOT.in.gov. I helped both of my parents get registered. It's very simple to use. Just go through the steps, and you will be surprised on the fact that if you're 65 and older, you can get registered for a shot. I just checked before we came on, Phil, and you can get registered for your first shot at St. Margaret's, I believe, before the end of the month. So there's still a lot of, and I should say Franciscan Hammond, not St. Margaret's, but that's, and there's places, and you don't have to go within your city. There are places on there. You can go as far away as Newton County or Jasper County or Stark County. If you really want to get your shot, you can register anywhere. So don't feel like you only have to register in Hammond if you live in Hammond. Look around and you'll be able to find a spot. So that's all I've got, Phil. If you have any questions for me from a legal end, I'm happy to answer them.
No, that's great, Kevin. I think it's good that there's indicators out there that have, given the governor and the state of Indiana, the comfort level to lower some of the restrictions that we've had in the state. So I think that's good for all of us, that numbers are obviously or hopefully trending in the right direction. Obviously, it doesn't change the fact that there are still people out there that are getting the virus, and unfortunately, that are passing away from the virus. So we still have to do all the same things we've always been doing, but at least it's a positive indicator moving forward. So thank you, Kevin, for that. I do want to turn to Jim Talon now, the Director of the Parks Department for the City of Hammond, because that's one of the questions we get a lot of here is about the Sportsplex and some of the tournaments and things that are happening over there. So Jim, can you update us on what's the latest with events that we're hosting and whatever information you might have for us?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Good morning. Nothing really has changed for us since the last meeting. We are still hosting tournaments through the executive order. There wasn't really a big change between these things on the red and the orange. And I know the updates come on Wednesday at noon, so we'll see in a couple hours here where the change is, if we stay in orange or possibly go to yellow. But we are still just allowing one parent to come into a tournament with a youth, a younger child that is competing. We still are not allowing any spectators for any of the adult leagues right now. At the Sportsplex, for example, the gatherings really haven't affected us because we haven't been using the community room for parties or anything like that. We more use that as a staging area for as we're transitioning from one tournament or one game to another game. So we've been able to use some of our different areas for that. So maybe as we get into yellow, we might revisit that. that part of it. Gene Shepherd is, they'll have their parties and things like that, and we just kind of stay within those numbers basically. So everything for us is still the same: social distancing, wearing masks, limiting spectators to parents, and other than that, just cleaning after between each game is kind of continuing to take place for us.
Are the coaches and the parents and the teams, is everybody cooperating at this point, just, doing the best they can, obviously, to protect all of us?
From what we can tell, most are. I mean, you have the occasional parents that will try and split up and come in. One parent come in with a child, one parent sneak in later on, but we do a pretty good job of getting through that and monitoring that. We have staff at each door, front and back door at the Sportsplex, so we're able to kind of maintain that. I mentioned the soccer side, they do wristbands, so you get a colored wristband that gives you a time frame that you're allowed to be in the Sportsplex, so it's easier for us to see you. If you don't have a wristband, or if your colored wristband is expired, we can ask you to leave and to keep everybody safe.
Okay, that's great. And I know a lot of people drive by the Sportsplex. They see quite a few vehicles out there, but the main thing for them to understand is that as you're entering the building, there are certain policies that you have to follow now. There's restrictions in place, and we're doing everything we can to protect all the kids and the parents and coaches that are entering the building. So that's important for them to know as well. But thanks, Jimmy. Thank you for the update. I wanted to talk briefly maybe with Superintendent Scott Miller from the school city of Hammond. I'm going to pick on you, Scott. I'm not going to let you just, coast through this little meeting. So, Scott, how are you, first of all?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you very much. Is there any updates from the school city side that you could share with everybody?
Sure. I noticed you said briefly, which is always a challenge for me. So I will keep it brief. The Board of School Trustees voted last night to extend e-learning until April 6th, which puts us after spring break at this point. I could really say that it would be really helpful for all of us if teachers could get availability for the vaccine. I think that would ease a lot of people's fears, and we could get our schools open a lot faster if teachers had availability for the vaccine. So we've talked with the Indiana State Department of Health about it. They are going to be using the Miller site for a vaccine site, and we've talked about trying to get our teachers in there as a priority, but it's just not there yet. We've also talked with Community Health Net, who is our clinical provider, and they're willing to help, but they just don't have the availability of the vaccine to assist yet. So I think that has kind of become the linchpin issue right now with our teachers and our staff is getting the vaccine. So with that said, the majority of students we will continue how we're doing. Career Center open, most special education students back in. We added our English language learners back in. We have our 3 safe zones with about 600 kids who come every day. We're still doing the meal service every other day where people can come up and pick up breakfast and lunch. And I would be remiss not to point out in the school's final year, we have the #1 rated boys basketball team in Hammond High. So go Wildcats, and we want to see them finish out strong and as state champions. What a story that would be.
Yeah, thanks, Superintendent. That's great. And I agree with you with Hammond High. I think everybody's kind of full informed, and even through everything we're going through right now, that's an exciting story for us to pay attention to. And also, I think, it's good for you to mention that with folks like Karen and Dr. Frank on this call. I mean, they're advocates for our community, and they understand that obviously teachers are just as important as first responders, so we can get our kids back in school. So I think everybody agrees that that's got to be an objective of our country. And I think even from the Biden administration, we've been hearing more about that we've got to get schools operating again at normal. So thank you, Superintendent, for the update. We really appreciate that.
Thank you, everyone.
Does anybody else have anything that they want to speak about or have questions or anything before we start wrapping up? I know when we're having these conversations, we talk about a lot of the same or similar practices and things that are important. I think we always have to, because we've got to constantly remind folks that just because we're farther along since the pandemic has started, we still got to maintain a lot of things that we're doing to protect everybody. So I appreciate that we're still bringing things up. But Dr. Frank, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, just real quick. There is I'm going to send you the link, but I got it off of the Indiana Department of Health. It's V Tracker. And what it is it's, I think it's through the CDC. And it's after you receive your vaccine, they ask you to participate, and it just monitors any side effects that you might have. You get a series of questions for the first week, and then I've been doing a weekly follow-up after that. And it just helps them collect information regarding, what your experience was like and any side effects you may have experienced. And I would just encourage people to do that. It doesn't require you to put any, information, sensitive, personal information in there. They just are trying to collect data, which could be helpful, in the long term for if they have to do, God forbid, a vaccine again, or so I'm going to send you that link if you wouldn't mind sharing that link along with the link that Sharon sent you.
Absolutely, Dr. Frank. Thank you for that. I will. I'll get the link to our IT guys as well, for sure. Thank you.
Yep.
I saw 6th District Councilman Scott Rakos came off of or turned his video on. Did you have something you wanted to mention also, Councilman?
Actually, I did. As far as the council goes, we're still doing the Zoom combined meetings. Some are at Zoom, some are the thing. I lost connection for a while, and I'm not sure I missed something, but I was wondering where in Hammond can you get the vaccine once you sign up, besides North Shore and Franciscan Health? Is there any other place in Hammond as of now?
So Karen, I don't know if you have additional information on that maybe you'd have more than most, or Kevin also put his video on. Whoever can share more on that, feel free.
Phil, I can just tell you that as far as I know, it's just Franciscan and North Shore. North Shore is out of appointments right now, is my understanding. At least when I checked on the website. So it's just North Shore. But again, you don't have to go in your community to get the vaccine. Like there's eChicago Health Department. There's a Munster Community is in there. I think Gary Northlake is in there. So there's a lot of stuff north part of the county, and just go on there and search, and you'll be able to find a spot close to your home.
There is a litany once you get the availability. I agree with you, Kevin. There's a litany of choices. Unfortunate if you can't get to those places. Obviously, it'll be a little bit more challenging. But I think there's a lot of choices. So
that's a great point. I think, Kevin, that's to hit on that. It's just because you live in Hammond, you don't have to get vaccinated in Hammond. I think you just find the list of places that are offering it, get your name on the list, and at that point you go to where you have to go to get the vaccination done. So great point, Councilman Rakos, of bringing that up. And also, I know there was legislation out there that was proposed. I don't know where it's at as far as moving forward, but as far as allowing video meetings and Zoom meetings and for, say council and redevelopment commission and, zoning. I think the state was looking at potentially approving that moving forward so that, this type of meeting format can still work in the future. And for some folks that can't get out of their house sometimes you can still add to public comment and things of that nature through this format. So Kevin, I don't know if you have an update on that, but I know there was legislation that was being proposed.
Yeah, I haven't seen it move yet, Phil, but we're keeping an eye on it. I mean, obviously there's competing concerns. You want to be able to have a public meeting in person, but you also want to have them available. I think at the very least, what will happen, you'll see more of, is that communities will have their meetings available to them via Zoom, or as Hammond's done for some time, even on GoHammond.tv. The ability to watch the meetings have been available, but I think they're going to extend that to the ability to participate perhaps remotely as well.
Okay. Yeah, we'll keep an eye out on that. And obviously we'll keep City of Hammond residents as well as all of Northwest Indiana up on the latest information as it transpires. So
yeah, Phil, one last thing. I just checked again on the website for the vaccine. There's 13 different places that I can see in Lake County that are available for sign up.
And Kevin, did you go to indiana.gov or what website did you go to?
That's all through ourshot.in.gov.
Got it. ourshot.in.gov. So write that down for folks, because I'm sure a lot of people on these calls are Hammond leaders and Northwest Indiana leaders. And so you get asked from a lot of folks for information that they think you might be able to help with. So that's very helpful. Does anybody else have anything else they wanted to bring up? I think it feels like we're giving a lot of similar information on these COVID calls, on these meetings. So obviously we'll have the next meeting as it's needed going forward. But it seems like indicators are positive in that, like what we talked about earlier. So we'll keep an eye on that. But with that, we'll close out the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lori, our interpreter, for everything you're doing as well. And I'll see everybody on the next call.